What a thrill to be here today. Thank you all for coming out. As somebody who doesn't act, dance, or sing, I never thought I'd be on a stage like this. So that's very exciting for me. A quick introduction before we dive in. I'm going to be talking about designing a product with a point of view. And Vitaly already said this, but I'm a writer. Now, normally when I tell people I'm a writer for digital products, they ask, what does that mean? What do you actually do? You do the copy doc, you do the proofreading. No, that's part of it. It's not all of it. And it's not really the way I think about writing and design together. So first, let's fix the emoji there. I work with the same tools and software and same processes as the rest of a design team. Here, maybe let me explain it a different way. Here are some tools that I haven't worked on. Has anyone ever seen designs that look like this? It's hard to evaluate, are these products good or not? Because they're incomplete. The words are there, but they're sort of placeholder. We'll have a button, or we'll have a link, we'll have a header that's amazing, but we don't know what it is. When writers work on design teams, we help think through what's actually on the page. How does the interface come to life? Writers help users know where to go next, how to not get stuck or confused. If your interface has words, you need a writer to help think through all of this. Writers can make products, these words, simple, intuitive, clear, human. This is sometimes how we describe really good products. But I think there's actually another level that writing can help you get to. Great products are not just simple and easy to use because, of course they are. That's table stakes at this point. I think great products actually stand for something. They have a point of view in the world. They say something interesting or unexpected or memorable. They have a real personality. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Not just usability, but how can you actually have a point of view when you're designing a product? Now, the first step towards writing anything, it's actually not writing. It's figuring out who's going to be reading it. We all know that this is true. Have you ever gotten a text message that wasn't meant for you? It feels weird, right? Or have you ever accidentally emailed the wrong person? We all know this intuitively. The way you talk to your parent is not the same as the way you talk to your boss. So when I start working on a new product, the first thing I do is figure out, OK, who's going to be reading this? Who are our users? It can help inform the writing, but it can also help inform the entire product, the strategy, where we're going, what's the feature set. It's very tempting, I've found, to start with something big and broad. So let's make a fake app together. This is all about finding movies to watch. A big, broad audience would be people who like movies. Cool, we've narrowed it down to everyone. Not exactly helpful. And it's hard to use this as a starting point when you're designing or writing. What if we could sharpen it to something like film obsessives? And already we can start making really important decisions about the product. These people don't just care about movie stars. They want to know who's the director, who's the cinematographer, who's the editor. These people stay through the end credits. It might influence pricing strategy, too. Film obsessives know that films cost money they're worth paying for. Maybe it even influences what products we design for. Film obsessives probably aren't watching that 4-hour Russian film on their phone. They plug into a TV, maybe they watch on their laptop. But when you define your audience in a really specific way, you're able to make those kinds of choices. Another example. Maybe it's just taking a big audience and adding something that's special about a group of them, starting really specific. So let's make another fake app together. We're selling used cars. Obviously, we need used car buyers. This is, if you're selling something, you need someone to buy it. Is there a way to describe this or sharpen it? Maybe it's used car buyers with kids. And anyone here who's ever bought a car that has kids know the calculus is very different. You care about safety. How does the car seat click in? Is there storage space for all the junk in the back? Now, maybe this isn't the entire product. It's just part of the product. But sharpening the audience gives us something to start writing and designing against. One more. We're doing a cooking app now. We're going to make a lot of fake apps together, so buckle up. Anyone who cooks a lot. Again, not really specific. Is there a way to hone in on what makes them different or special? Maybe they're just expert home chefs. They own that giant KitchenAid with all the attachments. They're open to trying hard recipes. You don't need to tell these people to salt the water when they're making pasta. They know that. Take it out. Have you ever read something or used a tool that was meant for someone dumber than you or meant for a kid? We all know that feeling. When in doubt, sharpen, go up. Treat people as intelligent. OK, so once you've defined your audience, the next important thing to do is to say something interesting. Brands have lots of ways of doing this. I've seen big manifestos or those 4 brand pillars that everyone likes to use. The goal is not necessarily to do all of that. And when I'm writing, I usually tell people, just start with a sentence. Start with one sentence, where you plant your flag, what you believe, what you care about. So here would be a bad sentence to start with. We'll do another before and after. You're doing an airline app. Booking flights should be easy. Yeah, of course. Every airline app could say this. Every airline app kind of does this or can do it. Is there another point of view that you might be able to have? Something like this. Flying shouldn't ruin the planet. And already you can start thinking there's a voice there. There's a point of view. I can design this. I can think about the kind of content that's going to be on the screen. I found that a lot of companies used words like this. Fast, simple, fun. Has anyone here used these words? I want to see every hand up, because I know you have. Every company uses them. And the reason is, it's sort of hard to argue with these words. Who doesn't like things that are fast or simple or fun? But it's also boring and bland and obvious. There's not a lot to work against. What does this interface look like? Kind of could be anything. But maybe we say something more interesting. Maybe you learn languages not through grammar worksheets or memorizing words, but through stories and songs and legends and myths. And all of a sudden, this interface starts to feel really different. We have audio, we have video, maybe there's illustration, but it's all about culture and folklore. You're not sorting cards and memorizing. One more example. Sometimes we define a feature. Keep track of your runs. Lots of apps can do this. So what? Is there an angle we can put on this? Why would you keep track of your runs? Not just what can you do, but why should you do it? Something like this. And now it's a competition. And in your head, you can probably start thinking, OK, the interface is going to be different. It's not just going to be a list of your times. It's going to be you versus hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of other people. It's interesting how just finding that one perfect sentence I found can unlock the writing, the voice, but also the UI, the features, everywhere we're going as a brand and a product. OK, so we've defined our audience. We've said something interesting. Now what do? I start with individual words. I sometimes call this the product vocabulary or the brand nomenclature, if you want to sound fancy. What do we call things in the product? Start simple. Maybe there's an individual feature for a music app you're building. Everyone can save the songs they love. Is it likes? Is it favorites? Is it my jams? These are all slightly different. Now, it's the same feature, but it's described in different ways, and that point of view and personality starts to come through. It's true for things you're selling on your website, too. It's always interesting to compare items for sale with different labeling. I'm wearing some of these right now. What do I call them? Sneakers, trainers, running shoes, something else? When you see this in an interface and in a product, it signals to the user, here's how we think about this. Here's our perspective on the stuff we're selling. Maybe it's just the headers. I always like to put image and text together. I think it helps if you have an icon or a photo of what's actually for sale. That's not always the case. It could just be, look, we have an app that lets you reserve spots at restaurants. What do we want to call that? Next meals, reservations, upcoming feasts? They do the same thing. It's just how do you label it? What's the perfect word? It's always interesting to see when there's room for creativity within a small interaction on the product. So let's build another app. We're selling something for $10 a month. It could be anything. Doesn't really matter. How do you describe the action of agreeing to pay $10 a month for something? Could be join. That's simple. We've seen that before. Could also be subscribe. That works. It starts to feel like Netflix or a magazine subscription. Or maybe it's something about membership. That starts to feel fancy and exclusive and premium. When I'm writing for products, I'm thinking really, really deeply about what is the perfect word to explain this. Now, again, these buttons all do the exact same thing. They all just say to the user, you're going to pay $10 a month for something. But the way it's framed is very, very different. Maybe you just want to emphasize something in the app. In this fake scenario, there's a leaky roof, and you need it to get fixed. What do you want the user to think about that person who's going to come? Could be that they're an expert. They really know what they're doing. They've been trained. They have the expertise needed. Or maybe, you know what? This isn't that complicated. I don't need an expert. I can get an 18-year-old down the street who can come and fix it. It's urgent, I just need to find help fast. It could be something else. It could be about, I need someone who lives nearby. It's a little bit about speed, but it's also about the building code, the county. They know how to fix this kind of thing in my city or my town. These are just different ways of framing the same interaction, asking for help. But what matters? What do you want to emphasize? Now, it's important to know that there's not always a ton of room for creativity. If there's a part of your product that has a checkout flow, there's always that little piece of like, where do you keep this stuff before you've checked out? There's sort of like 3 or 4 options here. I would never say, add to submarine. That doesn't make sense. The goal is not to make complicated and try to get clever and cutesy. The goal is to explain a real user benefit, help people understand what they're doing, but also have a point of view and a perspective. We see this come through in a component like this, a search bar. Let's say we're doing an app that lets people find books to read. It could just be a search bar, and that's totally fine. This is one of the most common components on the internet for the last 30 years. Or it could also explain, you don't just have to search by author name or title of book. You could search by genre, biography. I think where it gets really exciting, though, is when you can inspire someone maybe to read something different. Try books by Black women. We're educating the user that we have a really powerful search engine, but we're also explaining this is what we think you should be reading. This is our point of view about the books that we think you maybe aren't reading enough of. Vitaly talked a lot about content design, UX writing. Nomenclature aside, what I usually say is there's kind of 2 rules you need to think about when you're designing an interface with words. And I will teach you both of them in the next 5 minutes. It's not complicated. The first rule, what you include is what you care about. So you're building a product that's all about, let's say, selling houses. Maybe the neighborhood matters, or the zip code matters, or the house price matters. Or you're designing a tool that lets people find movies to watch in theaters. Showtimes, that's what matters. Maybe you're doing a dating app. I guess height matters because every app asks a question that looks like this. How tall are you? These all signal to the user, we think this is important. We think height matters a lot when you're looking for someone to match with. They don't ask for blood type, but they do ask for height. What you include is what you care about. It's especially striking, I've found, that when you compare 2 different tools talking about the same thing. Let's look at music. You might recognize these 2 sites. One of them is Spotify, the other is Discogs. They're talking about the same album. It's a techno album. They all have a lot of overlap of information. So there's the album cover, there's the artist, there's the name of the album. Spotify then tells you the year it came out and gets right into that big play button. Tap this, start listening. Discogs says, we think the record label is important, so we're going to include that. Not just the year it was released, but the day, the country, the style. It's not a matter of what's right or what's wrong. These are just different perspectives. They're different points of view. They're talking about the same album, but by including information, you signal, we think this is important. Maybe you're booking a doctor's visit. Secondary information matters too. So we have the photo of the doctor and the name of the doctor. Do you care where she went to medical school? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. These are different perspectives. Do you care how long she's been practicing? Again, you might. It's a way of organizing the information. What you include signals something to the user. We sometimes joke about all bank apps being the same. And there's a truth to it. All bank apps kind of do the same stuff. One way to create a point of view is to add more tools, more content, more ways to help the user. So the same interface, look at that blue link underneath. Are there other things we can do to push them apart? Can we let users maybe set goals? Can we help them understand how they're doing compared to other people in the same age bracket? Maybe it's all about retirement. That's our lens. Adding extra content can also signal something. OK, rule number 2. Equally simple. Bigger means more important. I think we all know this based on H1 and H2, title versus body text. But it's especially striking when you look at different pages laid out differently. Airlines meant what a dense piece of information hierarchy you need to kind of wade through sometimes. Now, the prices are all different because I took screen grabs on different days. But what I really want you to look at is departure times, price, and sizing. The UX on the left says, we think departure times and arrival times are most important. So we're going to make those really big, and the price is going to be really small. Probably less important. The one in the middle says, absolutely not. We think price is most important. People can be flexible plus or minus a few hours. What they really care about is how much is this going to cost me. The one on the right says, you know what, they're actually probably about the same. Why don't we make them the same type size and type style? Playing with size, bold or not bold, this is a way of organizing information and organizing writing to help show users what we think is the most urgent. Where should the eye go first? Sometimes you have an identical tool, but you want the focus to be different. These are both timers. The one on the left is just counting down from 10 minutes. 9:59, 9:58. The one on the right is also a timer, but it doesn't want you to focus on the time. That's not what this tool is for. It wants you to focus on breath work. It's Zen, it's meditation. So what's really big is right there in the middle. Exhale through mouth for 3, 2, 1. Same feature, but different lens. On the left, the time is really big. On the right, the time is really small because it's really not what we want you to pay attention to. Let's go back to that doctor visit. Now, last time we tried to book a visit with Lauren, her name was really big. Was that the right decision? Do you care what your doctor's first and last name are? Maybe you do. Or maybe you're thinking, I just need someone first thing tomorrow, 9 a.m. Let's make that really big. Or I need to talk to a specialist. Let's make her specialty really big, dermatology. It's the same interface, but you can start playing with these different type styles and sizing. See what needs to be included, that's rule 1. And then see what the hierarchy should be. What should be big, what can be secondary. When I'm working on a product, I'm always looking for those moments to add voice, to add perspective, add personality. You can do it on the homepage. Now we're selling coffee. How do you describe subscription coffee? Let's make this our $10 a month thing. It could be all about waking up, being energized, kickstart, strong stuff. Maybe that's really not what we're trying to say. Our point of view is more about we get this from South America. There's romance, there's excitement. It gets shipped from far away, the way it's roasted. Maybe it's something else. It's just don't think too much, just automate it. This could be a homepage, could be a Twitter bio, it could be an about us, but different ways of lensing. What is this app even for? What's the point? We talk a lot as UX writers about making things clear and simple. Questions should be obvious. I need to ask my users, do they like spicy food? Now, there's a version of this that just says, do you like spicy food, yes or no? And that might be right. I think you should start with simple and clear, but you shouldn't end there. You can keep exploring. You can add that personality, have that perspective. Maybe our app is very pro-spicy food. It celebrates it. It gets excited about it. That can come through in the writing. Even simple questions like this, there's room to explore and add that voice. Or the bottom of the website. Anyone else here neurotic like me and always look at the footer? I see a couple of hands. Perfect. It doesn't need to be that legal text. In fact, maybe it shouldn't be. In the middle there, we don't want to feel like a company. Who cares what our LLC is called or how we're incorporated? This is 3 women who love kombucha. Or maybe on the right, it's our point of view is you should be recycling these cans after you drink them. These tiny moments can say a lot about who you are and what you think. Could even be an individual word. We have a food app and you have to add a side dish. How do you describe that? Again, maybe it's simple, just add a side. Or maybe you want to talk about, this is what lots of other people add, it's popular. Or we change these every 3 to 6 months so the ingredients are always fresh and in season. Maybe it's the fact that somebody makes this in the back of the restaurant. We don't order it or buy it in bulk. It could be just an individual word, and that's okay too. Adding that word lenses the product and shapes the understanding for the user. Now, when I talk about adding moments finding moments to add voice, there is such a thing as overdoing it. Have you ever met someone with too much personality? That's a thing. Find moments, but also find moments to get rid of it. So in a load screen like this, it might make sense based on load time to explain what's happening behind the scenes, like in that first example. It could just be a chance to have fun. Be humorous, lighthearted, or it could just be a little timer. It could be none of these things. Maybe it's so fast you don't need this screen. Be careful about adding brand voice where you don't need it. I found there are certain kinds of apps where you can just kind of get rid of it altogether. I wouldn't add a brand voice to a calculator. That's going to be really hard to do and will only be annoying and clutter the interface. Maps have a ton of density. I don't know what you would add here to make it clearer. There are ways to have a point of view that don't involve adding more text, or things like a calendar. You can have a brand, you can have a style. Could you add words to that calendar? Maybe. I wouldn't. I think it's an awful idea. Or a product that's more about delivering content, news and videos. The point of view can come through in the editorial choices. The little list at the top, is it politics, tech companies, like what goes in that list? How do we surface information? What's our photography style? What kind of person gets to write? What gets bubbled up? Those editorial decisions can also influence the product's point of view. But I wouldn't add more words if you don't need them. What's exciting about working as a writer in digital product design is not just changing the words. Words matter, but it's the entire interface that explains who you are and what you think. It could be something as simple as language. These all say welcome. They say the same thing, but they say it in different ways. And they signal, I'm for a certain kind of person who reads and understands a certain kind of language. Or a small part of the product. Have you ever bought shoes in another country? Not always easy to do. There are brands that say, even though we're based in the EU, we want to feel British. So we're going to do British sizing. It's infuriating, but that's a choice they make. Or brands in the US that want to feel European. These little choices do signal something to the user. It's a point of view. How about an interface like this? Anyone here right on the cusp? So what this interface says is, if you're 35, we think you're more like a 44-year-old than a 34-year-old. That's a point of view. Oh, by the way, anyone 55 and older, 55, 95, you're all the same. We'll lump you all together. We've talked a lot about giving your product a point of view in coffee and music. Points of view can also be hurtful. They can be sexist. They can be mean. I think the worst products aren't just clunky and hard to use. They're racist. They're offensive. This product has a point of view. It's anti-trans. It's offensive. It's mean. It's dangerous. It's also, by the way, clear and simple. I think that's why those words aren't always the best to evaluate what a good user experience is. Something can be simple and mean at the same time. When you work in UX, you're going to have to make a lot of hard decisions. Not just about what movies to watch or what content gets in there, but how do we treat people? How do we recognize race and gender? How do we include people? You're going to need to make decisions like this. There's a checkout flow. You're working international. Is this what your brand wants to do? Maybe it is. You're going to need to make a lot of really, really hard decisions. This is not a hypothetical, by the way. Brands are still figuring it out. This is from less than 3 months ago. Now, think about this. It's remarkable, right? A giant luxury corporation is apologizing to a government over their checkout flow. It's wild, but it's true. You're going to need to think through all of this. Not just the fun stuff like shoe sizing, but also people and freedom, those kinds of things. And as a writer, this is what I focus on. How do we make the experience better, not just simpler, but more inclusive, easier? How do we make those right decisions? There's also, quite frankly, only so much writing can do. Sometimes I'll be called in to work on a project and they'll ask me to do a copy pass or a proofread. That's not really how good UX writing works. Good writing identifies issues. It helps the words work with the interface. It helps solve the actual problem, not just the words on the screen. I always tell people, you can't outright a bad UI. If I tell you I'm a vegetarian, and then you see me eating a cheeseburger later, you don't know what to think. But you know I'm a liar. The same is true in digital product design. How many times have you seen a screen like this one? The headline says, this is free. The interface says, no, it's not. It's tempting to try to write your way around this. I've tried. You can add things, right? You have 12 days to cancel. You won't be charged till October 15th. It still feels slimy because it is slimy. The writing can't fix the interface. Or another one. Have you ever used an app that says it's going to be easy? Seems easy. I can type my name. This will take 2 seconds. And then you see the eyebrow. Step 1 of 29. Again, we talk about making things clear and simple. It's good. Clear and simple is good, but not when it hides things, when it obfuscates, when it actually just pushes things down the line. That's just one framework you should be using to evaluate your UX. The same is true for things like inclusivity. Companies like to say that they include people with headlines like this. It's a nice enough headline. It's designed for all bodies. And then you start looking down the page and you realize it's designed for 3 bodies. Small, medium, and large. So I hope you fit into one of those sizes. That's why writing is important. Not by saying what we think, but by changing the experience. When I work on products, I don't just look at the words. The same way visual designers don't just look at the components. Together, we work to fix the UX. It's always interesting to see examples like this because they point out, not that writing can't fix things, but writing can illuminate things. It can show what's broken, not with the words, but with the entire UX. I think a few of you raised your hands, maybe that there were some UX writers or content designers in the room. I hope you understand now what writers do, how we shape interfaces. My biggest piece of advice is this. If you want to take a photo of the screen and text it to your boss right now, I can hold it up there. Bring a writer in, not the day before you ship to catch any errors, not to choose necessarily between is it add to bag or add to cart. Those things matter. Every word you choose matters. It's really more about fixing the UX, fixing the entire experience. Words are part of it. If there are words in your UI, I think you need a writer. And when writing and design work together, the results are absolutely remarkable. You'll have a product that's easier to use, that's clearer and simple, but more than that, you'll have a product with an actual point of view. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nick. Would you like to join me for the conversation?
Let's do it.
Oh, wow, we have so many questions. I mean, this is
OK. Let's dive
getting
in.
out of control. It's out of control. All right, let me just open up. I think the very first question that was mentioned by Alina, it is, how do you build a point of view when your product is for a very wide audience? So I currently work at a bank, and what I hear from my communication department is that we actually need to speak the same way for both young and older customers. What do I do?
Yeah, that's always tricky. I think you can't write all things for all people at the same time. When you try to write for everyone, it ends up being bland and boring and forgettable. Some success that I found is by writing the same thing 2 different ways. I just clicked through 40 slides of me doing this. But I would look for an opportunity to say, hey, if we want to write for all people, here's what it looks like. Or we could be more pointed, here's what that looks like, here's what the other version looks like. Sometimes it's hard to evaluate writing on its own. Have you ever gotten feedback about something you wrote that says, make this friendlier? You're like, I don't make what friendlier? What does that mean? It feels friendly to me. But if you have 2 things next to each other, that conversation gets a little bit easier. So I'd say try a couple of different versions, and then do your best to avoid writing for everyone at the same time. When in doubt, write for someone smarter.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think that sometimes you can also, depending on the level of proficiency with the interface, right? You could potentially just change the wording in some parts and kind of adjust it based on basically the personas or the kind of users that you have.
Yeah,
that's actually an interesting point as well. Bruno is wondering, are you always doing the writing up front in the conceptual phase? Since after all, it tends to change layout and experience choices later.
Yeah, I do. I mean, creativity is really complicated. When you're designing or writing, you sort of do everything at the same time, and it can get messy. When I'm working on a product, I think about not just what are the right words, but should this be a drop-down? Do we need to ask this? So I do it all together. I'll very often do that sort of upfront work that I talked about at the beginning of like, okay, who am I even writing for? And what's the bigger statement that we're trying to make? And then when I'm actually in the Figma file, I'll be thinking not just what are the right words, but yeah, do we need to include this part of the product? Or should we have another feature? Or should we label it that way? So I guess that's a long way of saying I do them both at the same time, and it can get kind of messy.
Okay. Based on that, there was actually a question about it that came a bit later. Do you work simultaneously in the same Figma file with designers, or is it a separate paper document or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, I always work in Figma or in whatever design tool I'm using. I think it's been only Figma for the last 4+ years. And the reason I do that is because when you work in a copy doc or a spreadsheet, that's great for handoff or translation, but it's hard to see, it's hard to visualize for me, what does that look like in the product? Like, does this header make sense? Is it redundant? Is there going to be an image there that complements it? I always work in the same Figma file. I've learned through years of experience not to mess with anyone else's flow, so I'll usually duplicate things or make my own page, have my own little sandbox to play in. If a designer is okay with me going in and changing their actual flows and files, I'll do that with explicit written permission. Otherwise, I stay to myself.
Okay. There were a couple of questions around clarity versus exciting copy, right? There was one from Chi, I think also one from Daisy that came later as well. How do you balance between writing accessible copy versus choosing interesting, unusual, or kind of personality expressive words? We want our users with different literacy levels to understand them all. How do you deal in that situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think clarity is always important. I always say to start with clarity, make things clear first, and then start building on the brand voice. Are there moments to celebrate? Are there things you can do to make it more interesting? It depends a lot also if you're going to translate this stuff, and if there's a person translating, or if it's more of a Google Translate sort of situation. Clarity is the most important. I think that a lot of products end there and don't explore other opportunities. The flip side of that is making things too cheerful and annoying. It's like what I was joking about with too much personality. I think we've all experienced those apps where it's, what's your name? Nick. Hey, Nick, nice to meet you. Let's get you started. Next. And suddenly there's all this text and we're celebrating every little thing you do. I'd be really kind of judicious about the opportunities to add brand voice, but they're there and they are important.
Okay. There are actually a couple of questions around what to do if you have to support multiple languages. Do you then work with local UX writers who are writing in that language? And then also related to that, how do you test your copy?
Yeah, so translation, in my experience, always goes better when there's somebody who is actually doing it, like a person translating. Simple stuff is easier to translate, but people who speak multiple languages can do it better. They understand idioms or the nuance. The same way, when you meet someone who speaks almost perfect French, you can tell in 2 seconds that they learned it as an adult. Not bad or wrong, but sometimes there is that subtlety that can get lost in translation. So people always helps. Depends on your team, your resources, all of that. Sorry, there was a second part.
The second part, how do you test your writing?
Yeah, user testing is helpful, and I think user testing is great for usability. Like, do people know where to click or where to go? I think testing things that are more subjective, it always gets really complicated. If you've ever done like brand testing, which color blue do you like more, or which logo do you like? I think it's really, really hard to test those kinds of things, and that's why we lean on talented designers or talented writers. Not just for usability design, but I think there's something to be said for years of experience and opinion and good taste, and that's really, really hard to test for.
I'm also wondering, Nico, like in general, when you think about the situation which we currently are in with AI and all, it feels like there are a couple of questions about, is AI going to replace the way of how we're writing, or actually influence the way of how we're writing? I often think about it from a different perspective, actually, because I think that whenever we start writing, we try to put words out there, very often we get to this position where their meaning gets lost. Like whenever you actually try to emphasize, this is really awesome, right, or anything like that, it seems like even when you actually ask for something, you have this need that you actually want to ask somebody for something, or you want to express something genuinely, kind of get in this role like, well, everybody is exaggerating and it's all kind of big deal, but then if you actually want to say it the way you mean it, right, then it kind of gets lost or maybe misunderstood. So I'm wondering, what do you think would be kind of the right way to, again, avoiding situation where we want to be genuine, want to be, without exaggerating, but we want to still be present in this noisy world around us, which exaggerates all the time.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's really tough. I mean, you can't, not every part of your product will be exciting, exclamation point, let's celebrate, woohoo, next step. I think that's, annoying and wrong. I'd say find one or two big opportunities to add that. But then also, like I was presenting, look for those little moments. Sometimes it truly is, what's the website footer? Or what do we call, this one header? Is it favorite songs or loved songs? I think those little moments can also add personality and point of view. It's not just those big celebratory screens that we sometimes see.
Okay. Oh, there is a tricky question.
Okay,
here.
let's do it.
Oh wow, this is going to be conversation. Nick, what are your feelings about text truncation?
My feelings about text truncation?
Yes, like now you have this card and the entire text.
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
fit in.
I know what it is. I'd say don't hide important things would be my immediate reaction. Text can get long, descriptions can get long. Make it easy to see what's hidden underneath there. But if everyone is clicking show more, you should probably just show it, would be my advice.
Okay. Sophie is wondering, as a designer, maybe we have like 2 minutes left. As a designer, you don't define the point of view all by yourself. How do you engage business into this process of making strategic decisions around content and making sure that they're applied consistently?
Yeah, and that's a great point. I showed you a bunch of real and fake examples that I did by myself. I'm very rarely working by myself, unless it's for a presentation like this one. It involves working with senior leadership, with business leaders, identifying, what impact will this have on revenue? Where do we think this brand is going? Or what does it want to look like? I've found a lot of success just helping those people narrow in on what are we actually trying to say here? Again, the bad strategies that I've seen, I'll use airlines again, is let's make our website easier to use, which of course, why it's really hard to argue with that, but that's also not a strategy. That's just something we should be doing. And so asking hard pointed questions about where are people getting stuck? What kind of people use our service? Just asking why over again can, I found, help you get to the meat of the issue and give you something to work against.
Okay, one more. How do you apply your principles to information that is fundamentally complex and dense? For example, how to explain how an fMRI machine works?
Yeah, so it's always tricky when you have that highly technical stuff. If I go to a doctor, I can see my bones on the X-ray, but I don't know how to work the machine or how to interpret that chart the way they do. In that instance, I would work with an expert and learn the language, learn the words that they're using. When you're on the fence, I'd say get someone who's smarter than you in that area, something highly specific. We can tell as people when we're being treated like we're dumb, or you read something that's written for a third grader. It's always really, really important to get someone, not necessarily who's smarter than you in general, but someone who works in that field. I'm sure you've all experienced this maybe when you describe UX. You can tell within the first 5 minutes of conversation, does that person know what they're talking about, or are they full of it? And you can tell by the words they use, the way they describe component or design system. It's learning the lingo and then testing it with someone who's really an expert on it.
Just to wrap up, also we had a conversation yesterday, and I think that there was an interesting question that came up. We're sitting in Elfengeburt, I think, sorry about the pronunciation, and they had this little quiz with 12 questions that you can ask yourself, right, and to kind of initiate a conversation. And there was one question that was really interesting, and you gave a really interesting answer. There was a question, I think, if you could do one thing, if you had one thing on your dream list or wish list, remember?
About forgetting, and then yeah. I think the question was, what was the question? If you could, a genie gives you a wish and you could wish for something, and I think my answer was, I would want to unwatch and unhear all of my favorite movies and albums, and then watch and listen to them again for the first time.
Yeah, weird thing is actually like when I heard that, I thought, oh, I want that too. Actually, that would be actually very nice. But maybe you can also explore a bit more. So if you have more questions to Nick, and I think that we have a lot of people here who have questions, please drop in now to the area where we have our foyer on the first floor. We will also have a Smashing membership, so we always guide speakers there so you can ask questions directly. Of course, there are also wonderful sponsors that also have things and giveaways and raffles, so please do drop in there as well. For now, though, please, again, another round of applause for Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Oh, fuck.